Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Proudly Jewish. I'm Rabbi Eyal Biton, and I started this podcast a few weeks after October 7th, 2023, as a response, as a way to grapple with what we had just witnessed, which is the greatest and most gruesome massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, and also what we were experiencing around us, which is a tsunami of Jew hatred. And this was occurring on an individual level, on a collective level, and globally. And I wanted to talk about it myself, but also help members of my community deal with these issues. And I stopped about a year ago or so for a few reasons. One was, and this is in no order, one was that I am very busy with my regular job, which is being the cantor of a large congregation here in Portland, Oregon, congregation Neve Shalom. And another reason is I took a hiatus to become a rabbi. I completed my studies and got my ordination last summer. I'm assuming some of you are saying Mazel Tov, so thank you very much in advance. Very meaningful period of time for me. And the third reason, to be honest, was I was feeling disappointed. I was feeling disappointed with the reaction, the response to what we were witnessing within the Jewish community. I felt that immediately, after October 7th, that the Jewish community needed to pivot and to confront what we were dealing with in an effective way. And that required changing our Jewish education system. I know there's a lot of variety, diversity within our system already, but generally speaking, something wasn't working. We needed to change the education of antisemitism to ourselves, but also the outside world. What we're doing is not working. And a few other things. I didn't feel that we were responding effectively. And I saw a few voices trying as well. And I just stepped back for a little while. And why now? I've been reinvigorated. And I'll explain that to you. I'll come back to this in a moment. I wanted to talk about the change that's been happening in the Jewish community for a long time. Not to the Jewish community, the change that's been affecting the Jewish community is a better way to phrase it. For a long time, before October 7th, 2023. There was, going back, not in any particular order, but in 2021, there was another smaller war with Hamas, and we were seeing the same things we saw after October 7th, but on a smaller scale. Jews were being assaulted in cafes, in restaurants. They were being assaulted at protests. Elderly folks attacked on the streets of Toronto and elsewhere. It was happening Toronto, Montreal, LA, New York. It was happening everywhere. And anywhere and everywhere, Jews would raise their heads, so to speak, be visible. And I thought the Jewish community would wake up at that point, if not earlier, and realize the issue here is not the occupation of the West Bank, as it's called. It is not whether or not there's construction going on in this city or that city, whether there was a permit for construction here or there, or the conduct of any Jews, settlers, or what have you. No, the issue was Israel's very existence. And beyond that, the issue was about who is a Jew and what kind of Jew is acceptable in society. That was going on in 2021. And I felt the Jewish community would respond then, and I didn't see it. Not enough. And so I really thought it would happen after October 7th. It didn't happen the way I expected it to. I'm going to come back to that. Looking beyond, before 2021, there was, some of you may remember this, the artist Matisyahu was scheduled to appear at some music festival in Spain. I forget what it's called, Rotodom or something like this. And they pulled the invitation and made it conditional upon his repudiation of the Jewish state. He's not an Israeli. He's a Jew. And they said, you must first renounce the Jewish state in order to play at our festival. Due to pressure, I think they rescinded this conditional invitation, but this was happening in 2015. It was plain to see our society in general was now making, there's a trend to make the acceptance of the Jew conditional upon the Jews' repudiation of our ancestral homeland, of our ties to the homeland. This is a way for our society to say, we accept this kind of Jew and not that kind of Jew. This is something we've seen for hundreds and hundreds or thousands of years, right? The Inquisition, this is what kind of Jew is acceptable to us. Basically not a Jew. If you convert, you might be allowed to live. If this, then we allow you. If you, then we allow you. This is also, this is not a history lesson, but this is something that we've experienced many times over. And this is a version of the same thing. This is 2015, this was happening. And this has only gotten worse. On that note, actors and filmmakers at various awards, Jewish ones, I'm talking about Jewish actors, Jewish filmmakers, have made public statements at these award shows. I don't know if it's Academy Awards or not. We might have an episode about this in the future, but they've gone up and made up public statements, public renouncements of the Jewish state. Why? This is an actor's award. This is a filmmaker's award. What does that have to do with anything? Because they get it. To be accepted in society, for the Jew to be accepted in society, one has to renounce the Jewish state. One's basically renounce one's peoplehood. And I know people out there are going to say, no, it's a political statement. No, it's not. And why do they feel the need to make such a political statement? This is not politics, and this is not the forum for politics. This is something else. So why now? Why return? I've been seeing more and more voices speaking up about change within the Jewish community in a way that that I find encouraging. I've been seeing it for a long time from some people like Ben M. Freeman, people like Eve Barlow, Dr. Naya Lekht. And recently there was a speech just a few days ago, last Sunday, I think it was, in New York by Bret Stephens, really an important one. And he makes the statement that the argument that it's a waste to fight anti-Semitism. And this is something that Ben M. Freeman has said as well, which is anti-Semitism, hatred of the Jew, is their problem. Anti-Semitism is the problem of the anti-Semite. Of course it affects us, but it's their problem, it's their issue. We have no control over that. Very, very little, if any, right? No real control. And what we can do is empower ourselves. You can't even begin to fight anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, if you don't feel that strength of identity and that affirmation first and strongly.
What we call the fight against anti-Semitism, which consumes tens of millions of dollars every year in Jewish philanthropy and has become an organizing principle across Jewish organizations, is a well-meaning but mostly wasted effort. We should spend the money and focus our energy elsewhere. The same, I might add, goes for efforts to improve the quality of pro-Israel advocacy or hasbara.
Another thing that Bret Stephens said is that building a strong sense of self, of Jewish identity, individually and collectively, is much, much more valuable than trying to be accepted by the society out there.
Does anyone think the fight against anti-Semitism is working? I know we all wish it could work. I know we'd like to think that if only we ensured that Holocaust education was part of every public school curriculum, private school curriculum, or universalized the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, or persuaded universities to stop inviting Israel-hating speakers, or got the news media to deliver fairer coverage of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or alighted on history's most brilliant PR strategy for Israel, or switched prime ministers to nearly anyone except Bibi, that if we did all this and more, we could turn the tide that's been running so heavily against us in recent years. I also know that now and then we do achieve some victories, particularly when it comes to getting university administrators to crack down on the most overt expressions of anti-Semitic speech. But here's what I also know, that Tucker Carlson's popularity and influence as a podcaster and political figure has only soared as his bigotry has become more blatant. The journalistic disgraces, such as the fake report about the 500 dead Palestinians at the Al-Ali hospital in Gaza, did nothing to prevent subsequent fake or grossly sensationalized reporting about the war that perpetuated anti-Semitic stereotypes. That the governor of Pennsylvania was asked if he'd ever been a, quote, double agent for Israel while he was being vetted for his party's vice presidential nomination. That the sitting vice president of the United States dismissed the idea that anti-Semitism was widespread and rising, and instead pointed the finger at people, by which of course he meant Jews, who, quote, want to avoid having a foreign policy conversation about America's relationship with Israel. That in New York State, with its abundance of Jewish cultural institutions open to the public, 1 in 5 millennials and Gen Zs believe the Jews caused the Holocaust. All of this is happening at a moment when the Jewish community has never been more alarmed, more engaged, more well-resourced, more eager, more courageous, and more willing to do something. So what is it that those of us who are in this fight against anti-Semitism are missing? The mistake I think that we make is this. We think that anti-Semitism stems fundamentally from missing or inaccurate information. We think that if people only had greater knowledge of the history of Jewish persecution, a fuller grasp of the facts of the Israeli-Arab conflict, a finer understanding of all the ways anti-Semitism manifests itself, a deeper appreciation of the Jewish contribution to America's success and to human flourishing worldwide, that the hatred of us might dissipate or never start in the first place. That thesis is wrong. Jew hatred is not the result of a defect in education. From Martin Luther to T.S. Eliot to Sally Rooney, the world has never suffered a shortage of educated anti-Semites. Jew hatred is the product of a psychological reflex, and that kind of reflex can never be educated out of existence, even if, for a time, it may be sublimated or shamed into quiescence. Anti-Semitism, in other words, isn't a prejudice or just a prejudice and a belief. It's a neurosis.
And the outside society may accept us more if we come out with that sense of strong sense of self. But that's secondary. The first one is building that strength. And again, this is something that Ben M. Freeman has said. The first book of his trilogy, and I've interviewed him in my podcast. I urge you to go search that on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And his first book was Jewish Pride, Rebuilding a People. And this is the same thing. You have to build that sense of that strong sense of self. This is who we are. This is who I am as a Jew. This is who we are as Jews. our land, our ancestral homeland is the state of is the land of Israel. It's a miracle that it's there. It's talking about its existence is off the table.
We are so desperate to be accepted. We are so we have been told by the non-Jewish world how you are either a good Jew or a bad Jew, how you're palatable. And we all want to be palatable. We all want to be accepted. We want to survive, and we have to understand that it is a survival technique. But yes, I remember that very specifically, and I thought it was, and I remember exactly what I said. It's like the gay community center themselves. The interviewer said, it sounds very like we.
Yes.
Or me. And
Right.
I said, the gay community is me. The Black community is me, as they should be.
Right.
We have to remember that we're part of the greater polity and that we're part of civic society. But yeah, I'm going to be thinking about Jewish people and how I vote. I'm going to be thinking about Jewish people and where I donate money, because we're allowed to be. And the notion that we are not, or the notion that it's unacceptable to be me, or we, is, it's actually self-defeating.
Yeah.
It's not just a little pathetic and a little immature and ignorant, it's self-defeating. And while it may be a survival mechanism, it's not going to help you survive. We need to understand who we are. We need to fight back. We're not begging. And it's okay to stay in the diaspora. But this idea that we're not allowed to organize around ourselves and center ourselves in our own stories is, I mean, honestly, it's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
No.
I have empathy for that position, but it's wrong. And I've become, as I've, in my old age, you know, and I wrote this book many years ago, and now I'm further on in my intellectual journey, I've become more dogmatic on certain things. And that is wrong. It does not help us. It doesn't help other communities. We should be allies, as we want communities to be allied to us, but they're mutual relationships. It's not that we have to leave everything at the door and say, okay, we're not Jews, we're just your average white person. How can we help you? No, we're a community that has specific needs and wants, and it faces specific issues. So when we support other people, it should be mutually beneficial.
Another really important thinker is Adam Louis-Klein. And I know that he disagrees with some of what Bret Stephens said at this speech last Sunday in New York at the 92nd Street Y. However, he, like Bret Stephens, is part of this group of voices that are insisting upon change from within as well as without, but certainly starting from within and not being content with the status quo and not saying we need to tweak this. No, it requires a rethink. And Adam Louis-Klein is, among other things, but his big point is that, okay, it's not anti-Semitism today. They're right. It's anti-Zionism, and it's something different. It's a whole new form of Jew hatred, but it's Jew hatred nonetheless. He does a stellar job of crystallizing what this bigotry is all about and how it must be fought, confronted immediately, but as its own new form of Jew hatred.
Anti-Semitism became a kind of shared language, really, for articulating political problems at the time, right? It was called the Jewish question.
Or the Dreyfus Affair, of course.
The Dreyfus Affair, exactly. The Jewish question, basically, different nations or emerging nations articulated the very problem of their identity in terms of, well, how does the Jew fit in, or how does the Jew not fit in? Today, we're seeing basically the same thing, but it's anti-Zionism. The framework is Israel. What is the role of Israel on the world stage? What is the role of so-called Zionists in our societies, right? So I think we need to recognize we're in the anti-Zionist age, and readjust our frameworks accordingly. I don't think we can continue to debate when does anti-Zionism become anti-Semitism, right? Like, this paradigm of crossing the line is kind of a way of giving an exemption clause in advance to anti-Zionism and reproducing anti-Zionism's appearance as a kind of pseudo debate about policy, rather than allowing us to see anti-Zionism as its own social movement and as its own hate movement and its own bigotry. So I think we need a paradigm shift. And with any paradigm shift, it's a question of being able to grasp a new phenomenon that's quite simple, but seems really complex in the current paradigm. So Actually, anti-Zionist hate speech is very simple. Like if someone calls you a white colonizing, genocidal apartheid agent and Zion-Nazi, it's very clear that that's basically a string of hate speech, right? But our current paradigms, whether that's IRA, JDA, or Nexus, the different definitions of anti-Semitism, require us to go into some very complex deliberations about, oh, well, does that apply double standards to Israel? What kind of critique of Israel is this? Whereas I think we need to just recognize it as its own form of hate that's fully mutated today.
All these voices that I've mentioned, and Dr. Naya Lekht, I mentioned her. She was also a podcast guest of mine, probably one of my first three, I believe. Her expertise is also on Jew hatred, on anti-Semitism and the evolution, the how that has mutated into anti-Zionism as well. But in terms of revolutionizing Jewish education, she's an important voice.
These words were, on the walls of our schools or the synagogues, tzedek, tzedek tirdof, right? It's not justice, justice shall you pursue, period. It's, let's read it together. Justice, justice shall you pursue, that you may thrive and occupy the land that I, Adonai Hashem, have given unto you. So it is not about justice. It is about how to rule as sovereigns on the land that God gave you. And it means, what does it mean to rule as sovereigns? That's the kind of work we need to do with our students, is to say that we need to explain to them Zionism is not a political movement. Zionism is identity.
Please check out all these people. Ben Freeman, Eve Barlow, Barry Weiss, important voice, who says something that Bret Stephens talks about, which is the importance of building new institutions that serve our interests, that empower ourselves. And I'm sure that some people disagree with that. Fine. But I think it's important. I think it's a valuable point. And Adam Louis-Klein, as I mentioned, and there are others out there. So these people, they're not the only ones, but they've moved me through the years. I was feeling disappointed, as I mentioned at the earlier part of this podcast. I was feeling disappointed that not enough Jews in America and outside of Israel have woken up, in my view, to this need for change from within. There are many elements in the Jewish community right here in America who choose to blame ourselves, the Jewish community, or to blame Israel for the hate we're experiencing. These are not the voices who will guide us forward. They're not. So even though they're out there, these voices that I disagree with, and there are the voices that I do agree with, the important thing for me has been the response to those voices. Bret Stephens' speech on, which is, you can watch that on the Dan Senor's podcast, Call Me Back. Whether you agree with everything or not, it's a very worthwhile speech to listen to and a podcast to follow, of course. But the response to it, there's a need within the Jewish community. For change. There's an understanding that that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that the public, the Jewish community of North America, that they're hearing what Adam Louis-Klein is saying. They're hearing what Bret Stephens is saying. I know they're not exactly the same thing, but again, they're hearing these voices and they're responding positively to that, to the messages that are being expressed. I'm going to a Stand With Us convention in Las Vegas in a few weeks, about a month from now, and they do phenomenal work. And they're confronting things, I think, in the right way. Whether every single aspect I can agree with, disagree with, their approach, they get it. They get what we're confronting today, what we're dealing with, and they're trying. And the fact that they're not just that they're doing it, but that people are responding to what they're doing. They're responding to what Adam Louis-Klein is saying. They're responding to what Ben Freeman is saying, etc. That response, that sense from the public is making me optimistic. There's hope for the future. And I'm speaking particularly about the future of the Jewish community in the diaspora, specifically in the States and Canada, where I'm from. I think it's hugely important that there be that we be aware of the problems outside the Jewish community in the sense of politically, the attitudes toward the protections of the Jewish people in our societies. We see Bondi Beach massacre in Australia. We want the Australian government and authorities to stand up for its democracy and the principles that it stands for and protect the people. Same thing in the States, same thing in Canada, et cetera, in the UK. When I see it being okay now in New York City to protest in front of synagogues, I worry. So being aware of all those things and confronting those as well outside the Jewish community is hugely important. But we start from within. You cannot deal with the outside world if you don't understand who you are and where you're from and what Judaism is, and that we reject entirely this idea that there's a conditional acceptance of the Jew in our society. This cannot be accepted. And we must fight that at every turn. And to empower our youth to understand that they are part of this long heritage, this long storied people, that they are part of a people, not a religion only, not a faith, but a people whose ancestral homeland is the land of Israel. And knowing how to if not publicly, then at least internally answer these accusations that are being leveled against Jews across the world regarding our attachment to our homeland. All that is of utmost importance. I feel invigorated by what I'm hearing. I feel positive about these voices that are coming out. I feel extremely positive about the response that they're getting. So Proudly Jewish is back. I look forward to having more conversations with you, with special guests in the future, confronting a lot of the problems that are out there outside the Jewish community, within the Jewish community, but seeking more than anything to empower ourselves to love who we are, to love Jewish identity, and to love the miracle that is Israel.